Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Yeah, hello and good morning. Live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. It is the Michael Dukes Show. Hello. Welcome to it this Thursday. Man, this has been a quick week so far. I mean, nothing better than a short work week after a long holiday weekend and or vacation, and you know what I mean. It's good stuff. Good morning and welcome to the program, and thanks for coming on board with us today. We have got we got some stuff. We got some stuff and things going on here this morning. We are going to jump into this here in just a hot second with some good. Anyway. Hour two. Hello. We've got Scott Ogan coming up to join us in hour two. Scott is a former state legislator and policy advisor now for Mike Shower here over the last year or so. He's got a piece out in Must Read Alaska that is entitled "The Top 10 Left Fork in the Road Policy Proposals that are going to be coming into the legislature this year." And we're going to go through some analysis and some discussion on what all of it means and what should we expect. That's all we're going to be dealing with right now, is what we should be expecting here in the coming legislative session, which again is not, it's not, we shouldn't expect much in the good way, in the way of good, coming out of the session this year. But it will give us a little bit of details. Scott's broken it down piece by piece, bill by bill, for what's going to be coming up here in the upcoming weeks as we get through this before we jump deep into election season. So this should be interesting. So we'll see what comes out of this, and we'll have some discussions on it with Scott in hour two this morning. In hour one, I've got my own discussions, my own thoughts and analysis, as well as a article out of the ADN that was written by Ira Samuels and Sean McGuire that's going to hit some of these things. Not a lot of great surprises for this. These are some of the same issues that we dealt with in the previous session, or previous half of the session here this last year. They're going to be making a repeat, and we'll keep having that talk here throughout hour one this morning, along with some other thoughts on some of the other things that are going on around around the state as well. Beginning also with the latest announcement from the ADN came out again this morning. Just a reminder that applications for the 2024 PFD are now open, and you can go file for your PFD online at mypfd.alaska.gov. You can also get paper applications. You've got until March the 31st. So we got the 90-day window is now open. And of course, we won't know what the actual amount of the dividend is going to be until later in the session. That will be one of the final things. They've decided it over the last, is it 8 years now? I guess this will be 8 years. They've been deciding the amount of the dividend instead of going by state statute and following the law, #follow the damn law. They've been deciding it. They've been deciding it on their own. The dividend amount proposed by the governor, adhering to the formula in state statute, hasn't been followed since 2016, but it would be well north of 3,000. In fact, last year, what was it, 4,200 and change or something? But people are basically saying the amount is likely to be closer to last year's amount, which was $1,312. And we'll see what happens. We will see what happens with that, and we'll go from there. 2008, remember those times? 2008, back in the day, when we had the $4,500 adjusted for inflation dollars. That was the big dividend year, 2008, with energy rebates and more. Oh man, those were the days back when our money was our money and the state's money was the state's money, and we could actually do some things with some of the things that were going on around there. Yeah, those were the days. Those were the days. Anyway, you might as well get some of yours while the getting's good. So go ahead and apply for your dividend, because I don't expect it will be with us much longer, quite honestly. I will be shocked and amazed if in let me see, what was it today, 2024. Let me just say if we reach 2030 and I'm making the same announcement in 2030, I will be shocked and amazed to say that now is the time to sign up for your dividend, because my estimation will be that by then it will be gone. And in fact, we'll probably be filing, instead of filing for your dividend, you'll probably be filing for your taxes, your state taxes of one form or another by 2030, based on what's happening, right now. Based on what's going on right now, yeah. I think it's fully anticipated that we will be probably filing for some form of state taxes by that time instead of a PFD. That will all be gone. That will be a distant memory, and we'll be going, remember back in the day when we used to actually, follow the law and get our PFDs? Yeah, those were good times. Good times. Oh, what else is going on? Grand jury's still in the news. I got a notification that on the 8th, the court case against Judge Murphy is going to be going on down in Homer. David Haig, who has been one of the chief supporters of this case and indictment, put out an email on Monday that said that the presiding judge in the 3rd District, Judge Thomas Matthews, had denied Judge Murphy's request. It was actually a combined request between Judge Murphy and the grand jury independent prosecutor Campion. They had a combined request to dispense with oral arguments in the felony prosecution of Judge Murphy, The reason for the denial was that Judge Matthews stated it is important that this case is transparent and open to the public. Murphy is one of the judges, it seems, that Alaska's only judge investigator for the last 33 years and counting, is falsifying investigations and certified documents. We talked about this with David Haig last month to get kind of an update about what's going on. The Alaska Grand Jury Association is urging people to come down and have people attend the oral arguments on Murphy's motion to dismiss. They're scheduled for 10 a.m. next Monday in the Homer Courthouse. So if you want to come on down and be part of it, Land's End is also offering some kind of special deal down there in Homer. So you could spend a Sunday night in Homer and then drive back after the hearing, apparently. If you can't make it into the courthouse, you can get the Zoom info as well at 907-235-8171. 907-235-8171. And so that's going to be again going to be this coming Monday down in Homer. And the next time that we have Ben Carpenter on the program, we will be discussing this with him as well, because he's been following this issue. And I mean, this is an important issue. The whole thing is super important. Grand juries are ultimately one of the last bastions of transparency and ultimate citizen control over their government. And when they get interfered with, when they get suborned by the judicial department which is what's being charged here, which that's the speculation here, then we've got some real problems. So this could be a very, very big deal in the long run. So we'll be watching to see what happens with that. 10 a.m. on Monday the 8th in the Homer Courthouse is going to be the oral arguments. So, what else? What else do I got to hear? Well, I guess I'm kind of out of time coming up here on the break. So we're going to get into that. Oh, we're also going to talk about the trend that has been happening over the last couple of years around the country. Now, normally we don't do, but this is the parallels, right? Alaska is not the only state that has been flush with federal COVID dollars and everything else. Although some states are handling it and have handled it a little differently. But the ultimate end result is kind of the same, and that is that the trend is now moving back in the other direction, and states are facing some serious budget shortfalls. Alaska is not alone in that. So we'll talk about that here as well as we continue on throughout the first hour here this morning. So good morning. Let's get to it. Let's get all prepared and dive in, shall we? And then we'll expect to see Scott Ogan in hour 2 of the program this morning to discuss all this and more. The Michael Luke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return in just a few moments, and we will kick things off on 2024 and what the session holds for us and more. It's all dead ahead on the Michael Luke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Well, good morning, my friends. How are you guys doing this morning? You ready? You all ready? You all ready for this? 1995 filing fee. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a thing. I think you should enjoy filing for your PFD while you can, because it won't be too many months, won't be too many years, and you'll be filing. It just won't be for a PFD anymore. Now you'll be filing for your taxes at the state level, because that's where we're going. That's what's that's the direction things are happening. Good morning, Gordon, who just said hi on YouTube. Teresa, Cindy, good morning, Melody. Good morning, Gail. My dad's out there. Donna Ardwin, hello. Chris, Jeffrey, Brian, Bill, Rick, the usual suspects. Good morning, guys. Thanks for coming on board. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in and joining up this morning on the old radio show. What do we got going on here? I'm a little scattered this morning, I'll be honest with you. Remember yesterday I told you that I was operating on short sleep yesterday. Well, I mean, I came home and so between yesterday and today, I'm working on about 6 hours of sleep for the last 2 days. So, the old brain case is not doing quite as well as we'd like it to do, as we'd like it to be. I want to talk about this story too. The city of Anderson, the former city clerk has been charged with embezzling funds from the city's bank account. And it's not even that much money. I mean, it's $140,000. And I'm like, if you're going to go for broke and you're going to, $140,000, it's nothing. You can't even barely make it out of town on that. I mean, it's not like you could go into hiding and buy a Bahamian island or something. Anyway, we could talk about that as well. Let's see. What do I got here? My mouse just told me it's about to die, and I need to have that. So let me deal with this real quick as we go through. Too many cables, too many cords, not nearly enough coffee. Whoa, there we go. All right. Plug this in here. Hey, look at that. We're saved. The mouse still works. Okay. I want you guys. Hookers and blow? What? Okay. Again, this is one of those things where context matters, and I don't know what I was saying when somebody said something. Bill does say he appreciates me. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I mean, I do this, I do it for you guys. I do it for me, but I mean, I also do it for you guys every day, getting things going. Short work weeks makes for work compression, said Jeffrey. Oh, I feel that. Holy cow. Especially coming back from vacation and then having a short week after coming back from vacation. Oh, that's a nightmare. But then on top of that, it's all, me running on no sleep. Yeah, I mean, I feel like Marion Barry. You know what I mean? Boy, that's really dating myself, isn't it? Feel like Marion Barry when it comes down to it. Yes, it could be hookers and blow. That's what's keeping me up at night. No, that's not it at all. But we'll get going on. All right, let's jump into it. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Dude, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So we're ready to go. We're ready to dive into it. Where do we start? Where do we want to start? Let's start with what's been going on in other states. So, I mean, we've talked in this state about how one of the downsides to the federal COVID dollars and the trillion, did you know that by December 31st of 2023, just last, was it Sunday? Sunday, that we paid nearly $1 trillion in debt payments. The debt payment was about $900 million. And that this next coming year, they're estimating, because the deficit pinged out at $37 trillion. Net that right there at the end of the year, we finally tripped over that mark. Yay, go us. We're overachievers. That next year they're estimating that just the payments on the debt is going to be about 1.1 something trillion dollars. I mean, I just don't even know what to say to that. It's like we could see it coming. We know what's going to happen. I mean, we know what's going. Anyway, but of course, all that free money. I mean, there was some good done with it. I'm sure. I mean, I'm sure. I'm sure it's all great. I'm sure that's going to be fantastic. But the AP's got a story up that came up here a couple days ago talking about this trend that over the last 3 years, there's been a trend across the country of states that have cut their taxes in some way. Every state except for Alaska and Nevada has enacted either permanent tax cuts, temporary suspensions, or one-time rebates on their income, sales, property, or gas taxes. Now, Alaska doesn't have any kind of statewide any tax on private citizens. They have corporate taxes, but not on, no income tax, no sales tax, no property tax. And Nevada doesn't charge income taxes. But that is about to reverse. Again, all of this seems to come from the fact that they all received large amounts of federal dollars from the pandemic era surge to try and protect us from ourselves. Though even more tax cuts are likely, the story says, the trend may be slowing as 2024 legislative sessions begin because the pandemic-era revenue surge fueled by federal spending and inflation now is receding, and in some states, even reversing into negative numbers. California, where financial swings are felt more sharply than most states because it's California, the fifth largest economy in the world or whatever it is, they have a projected budget deficit this year of a record $68 billion. Now, they have hefty reserves in that state, but they ain't got $68 billion in reserves to get the job done. This, of course, a $68 billion deficit just a couple of years after enjoying a $100 billion surplus. Gavin Newsom is now facing a challenging task as he prepares to present the state budget this month. Though not in the same hole as California, other states have also seen tax revenues decline and spending exceed forecasts. Oh, shocking, I'll tell you. This reminds me of the chart that Brad had up this last week, where it was the fiscal outlook and the projected spending over the next 8 years. What the Legislative Finance Division has from current law and what they expect the spending to. They say that in 8 years, they're projecting that the spending will go up just over, I guess, just a hair over $1 billion in 8 years, which I think is just tremendously optimistic. Remember, the state budget would, if nothing else happened, if the legislature said, no, we're just going to do a walk-on, we're not going to increase it at all, we're not going to give any extra monies, we're not creating any extra programs, we're not buying any constituencies, we're not doing anything, and they just let it ride, so to speak, put it on cruise control, that the state budget has got built-in escalators into it. That it increases about $150 million a year automatically. So, I mean, that means that in a 10-year period, the state budget should go up $1.5 billion. And they're saying that in 8 years, it will only increase by about 1.2 billion, which is basically, they're just saying, oh, nothing else. That's exactly what they're saying, that this is going to be on cruise control and nobody will ever add anything to the budget. Oh, I hate to break it to you, sweet lips. That's not how it works. So when they start saying that, all of a sudden it's shocking, I tell you, that they're gonna exceed spending forecasts. Yeah, it's not surprising at all. Arizona, for example, is going to face about a $400 million shortfall in 2024, rather. Maryland's legislative staff recently projected a $761 million deficit by 2025, growing just in those same 4 years to nearly $2.7 billion without any significant revenue increases or spending reductions. I love it how they always put the new revenue ahead of the reductions. Do we have a spending problem or do we have a revenue problem? There you go. Minnesota's budget office has a projected $2.4 billion surplus for the current 2-year budget cycle could flip upside down in the next one, resulting in a $2.3 billion shortfall for the 2026 fiscal year. Now, the question that the AP article asked, and this is kind of the tone of the whole thing, it's hard to say how much, if any, of the projected shortfalls are attributable to tax rebates or reductions passed in each particular state. But in general, as tax collections slow, we're seeing the impacts of widespread tax cuts being implemented across the state. So we can't really say how much of it is attributable, but we're saying that it's all because you decided to give some kind of tax breaks to the consumer. That's the tone of the article, which is just fantastic. Just fantastic. It has nothing to do with the politicians' inability to control their spending or do what they need to do or any of that other stuff. It's all due to the fact that they gave money back to those greedy taxpayers. How dare we have any taxpayer relief during the COVID pandemic or anything? How dare we do any of that? So, but again, you could just see a lot of the parallels of what's going. Now, first of all, you could see the parallels in the idea that, I mean, I am all for cutting back on taxes and giving rebates and eliminating those things 100%. on board with that. But also we have to remember, and these people being bureaucrats, states, functionaries, they were all warned that these federal dollars, that those were one-time dollars, and they should not bake them into the budget in such a way that it creates a problem. And yet, in state after state, municipality, counties, boroughs across the country, what did we see? We saw exactly what happened in Anchorage. They took one-time funds and they used them to pay ongoing, reoccurring costs, in this case, salaries, and then took the money that was going to be spent on salaries and they spent it on other things. And then when that money dries up, as they were told that it would, they are shocked, I tell you, that this crisis has come about. We now have a $90 million shortfall that we had no way to know that this could happen. You know why we have a shortfall? It's because you, the legislature, you, the greedy citizens of Alaska, you just haven't given us enough to fund these children and to do all this stuff. That's it. You know, it's an artificial crisis created by the same people that are now crying the blues on not having enough money. It's the same group of critters that were warned to not take one-time money and use it for reoccurring costs and apply it or dedicate it for reoccurring costs, because and then when they do, they're shocked that suddenly there were all these deficits that came out of nowhere because what's the old axiom, or the piss poor planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part kind of thing. That's where we're at with this. They were warned not to use the one-time funding and plug it into budgets as reoccurring costs, because as soon as the money dried up, there would be a deficit. Shocker, I know. But I'm just showing you that Alaska is not alone on this. It's not just Alaska. It's not just the Anchorage School Board. It's everywhere. But as the old sage wisdom from Rahm Emanuel came about, you can never let a crisis go to waste. Especially a crisis that you created and can then leverage to your advantage. Because I swear, these people are not that stupid, right? I mean, we could come back this is all, to me, I look at this and I go, this has got to be all part of the plan, of some kind of plan. They were told, they were warned, they were chastised to say, please don't plan on using these things for long term, because this is a one-time offer. And they're like, oh yeah, great, thanks. And then they take it and do exactly what they were warned not to do. And then when the money runs out, they all run around wringing their hands and telling people about, look at this crisis. Well, no duh. No duh, man. You were warned. Anyway, Alaska is not alone in this. I mean, the California one, $68 billion. Going from $100 billion surplus to, when you turn the fiscal train $168 billion in the wrong direction, well, first of all, it shows you that there's just not enough money in the world to satisfy people. There'll always be something else you want to spend that money on. There'll always be some other thing that's great, and whatever. But that's the thing right there. It just goes to show you that, that's, and California, they had the opportunity to pull the plug on Gavin Newsom and they didn't, which it's interesting. It's interesting. Anyway, I'm going to post this. Well, I can't post the article because it's anyway, I will post a, because I'm in the back end of the, anyway, it's an AP story. State tax cutting trends face headwinds. If you just Google the title. I'm sure you'll find it somewhere. Okay, well, we're up against the break again. I still have got to get to my ADN story, talking about the legislative session, the updates and the headlines and the big bullet points that are going to be hitting for this legislative session. And then we will be joined by Scott Ogan in hour 2, who is a former legislator and a former policy advisor for Mike Shower, and we're going to come on board and we're going to talk about that stuff. Yep. So we're going to continue with that here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll be back with more right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, well, we got into a bit of a groove there. Just getting Scott squared away here. Can't talk and type at the same time this morning. Well, I have a hard time doing that to begin with. So there you go. Okay, let me go back over here. Somebody from Twitch, some rando from Twitch is up there going like, hey, great Santa show. Yeah, this is Merry Christmas to you. Merry Christmas to you. Where can I find the article, said Donna. Okay, so Donna, again, I was in the AP, the radio station's AP service. So I was reading the story from the AP directly. I don't have a direct outward public-facing link to it. But if you Google what I just posted, the state tax cutting trend faces headwinds from declining revenues and tighter budgets. If you go back and look at that and Google that, I'm sure it will lead you to the AP story. Oh, I suppose I could give you the author of the David A. Lieb from the Associated Press. David A. Lieb. There you go. Right there. David A. Lieb, Associated Press. So if you Google that, I'm sure you will find the story. I mean, I could do the work for you, I suppose. Where's my thing here? Can I do that? There you go. One day ago. This is the Wire story from David Lieb. Here we go. ABC News. So let me do the work here and get it to you. There you go. Right there. That's the same story. And it's from ABC News. Gruesome Newsom had the benefit of lots of state money to throw around to stave off the recall. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be costly. That's going to cost them in the end. I mean, the fact that some of these people didn't get recalled just over the pandemic regulations and restrictions, and then the fact that they were so draconian on most of the private citizens, and yet at the same time they were going to their French Laundry restaurant things and getting their hair did and one rule for thee, another for me kind of thing. Shocking. The fact that people just weren't up in arms about that just kind of shows me the humanity kind of thing, right? Like I kind of lost my faith in humanity in a lot of that here. Richard said, speaking of all the state stuff, he said, I just got a letter from the Minnesota Department of Revenue that it's a 1099 for $260 related to a one-time tax credit that I haven't received related to 2021 returns. I almost want to call them and tell them, no thanks, I don't want to pay taxes on it or have anything to do with that state. There you go. I mean, things just get more that just get more wild by the minute. Donna says California is always like that with their swings. When I said that they swung around, $168 million in the opposite direction, she said they're always like that. Their steeply progressive income tax causes wild swings in the revenue. Yeah, I mean, and of course, the other fringe benefit to that is that it's driving people out of the state. But have no fear, their answer is to, of course, their answer to that is to have an exit tax out of California. If you plan on moving out of California, they're going to hit you one more time on the way out the door and tax you for leaving the state. I mean, it's just like that place, man, that place is just astonishing. It's like they just double down. It's like we can't get enough one way, so we'll double down and do it another way. And New York and some of these other places are considering the same thing. Because why? Because people are fleeing those tax jurisdictions. They're going to places like Florida and Texas and other places where they just don't have the same tax structures and schemes. They're opening up new businesses and manufactories in other parts of the state or other parts of the country where they don't have those kind of rules. And their reaction is not to examine their own behavior. Their reaction instead is to just double down on it. That's what they're doing. California, they got the government they deserve, said Brian. Yeah, you're not wrong on that. You're not wrong on that. All right, let's proceed ahead. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. All right, welcome back to the program, The Michael Duke Show. Hour one of the big radio show for this Thursday, which reminds me, that means tomorrow is Firearms Friday. Yeah, baby. Oh, man, the first Firearms Friday of the year. We need to be talking to some people. We need to be talking. Anyway, that's tomorrow. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Let's stick around with today, and we'll see what goes on. We got Scott Ogan coming up here in hour two, former legislator and senior policy advisor for Senator Shower, former senior policy advisor for Senator Shower. He's going to be joining us with his analysis of what he sees in the upcoming session. As a longtime behind-the-scenes guy and insider, we'll get some deals on that. But let's go over here and talk about some of the big things, the big political stories, the 2024 political stories to watch. That's what we're looking at right here. And some of these are, most of these, I was going to say some of these, but that's, most of these are going to be no surprise. They're going to be no surprise for most of you because that's just, this is what's coming down the pike. We know it, that we've been talking about it. Some of it is a repeat from the last session, and that's where it tops all the stuff off here. It starts off with school funding. We know that's going to go on. But again, one of the interesting quotes, and I quoted this yesterday and I talked about this, but it was just, it's so ironic. It's just so disappointing for those of us who supported Mike Shower in his first term, and then held our nose and supported him maybe as a second choice vote, unranked choice voting, in his second term. But it's just so disappointing to see where this is going. When asked about his sales tax proposal that he promised earlier in 2023 and never delivered, Governor Dunleavy said in December, "We're now in an election year. I don't know how much momentum is going to occur this year." Well, you know how much momentum is going to occur when you don't even present anything? I'm just saying, it may not get off the ground, but at least you made the effort. I mean, what do you have to lose? You talk about it. You talked about putting the proposal out. You already took you already expended the political capital by throwing it out there into the wild and taking heat from people for talking about creating a sales tax in the state. So you might as well follow through on it, because you already took the political hit to begin with. Not that, I mean, when I say political capital with Governor Dunleavy, I don't know how much it matters what he expends. I mean, he's a lame duck. Is he looking to run for the Senate? Is he looking to do something different? I don't know what his next plans are, but I just don't know. I don't know why. He had nothing to lose on this, and he could have taken a stand and he could have presented it as part of his budget, but he's just like, oh, it's like, I can't be bothered. Nobody's going to pay attention to it anyway, so why bother? So we start off with that. Then, of course, one of the biggest issues is going to be school funding. We know it's coming. Again, we just talked about the federal dollars that were used to offset ongoing costs, and now it's a crisis because the monies have run out. Like, shocking, we knew it was going to happen. And now they're talking about, $100 million deficit in the state, in the Anchorage school district, and other school districts are talking about closing schools. And it's just, it's a well-oiled, well-orchestrated crisis. The Senate majority passed a bill last year to increase the BSA, but of course that got cut. They took it outside the formula, put it outside the funding formula, making it a one-time appropriation. And to the governor's credit, he did veto half that funding. So I don't want to be, I don't want to beat too hard on the governor, because he at least did that. I would have thought that he should have been a lot more, not judicious. What's the opposite of judicious? He should have been a lot more liberal with that red pen. He should have just been splashing some red stuff everywhere on that budget, in my opinion. Again, he's got nothing to lose. It's not like he's coming up for re-election, right? Unless, of course, he's planning to run for, again, some kind of statewide national office, and he wants to run the middle of the road so that he doesn't offend anybody coming up to the next election cycle. Alaskans can expect the school issue. Here's a quote. Alaskans can expect this issue to come roaring back when lawmakers convene in 2024. Educators say that with the federal pandemic relief exhausted, a boost to the state's formula is all the more necessary. Because now, can I just point a couple things out here real quick? How much time do I have? We're not going to get through all this, are we? We're not. Let me just point out a couple things. First and foremost, the pandemic relief money, especially for school districts, was meant to essentially help offset some of the costs of their new paradigm of remote learning and some of these other things. But they really pounded the drum, and they got billions of dollars across the country. Now, at no time were many of these schools really in any danger of receiving less fun? Because they've got hold harmless provisions, they've got all these other things. There's the state relief money, the federal relief money. All this money came down, but I love how this comment in this article is worded. Educators say that with the federal pandemic relief exhausted, we got this huge influx of new money. What we were living on before the pandemic, which was never quite enough, but we were doing pretty good. Now, because we've had all this new money, now we even need even more money when that money goes away. It's just, it's insatiable. It is insatiable. How they just want to consume. Dunleavy's budget draft released in mid-December didn't include a formula change, but the Senate majority has already signaled that it would remain a priority for them. Whether enough House members agree will be a pivotal question. The 2023 legislative session ended with the House majority in disarray and its Republican leaders promising to look inward for a clear set of priorities in the coming session. Because that was the thing. I mean, they were in disarray, first of all, because the Senate pulled an end-run terrorist threat maneuver around them. And then they gave in. They negotiated with the terrorists. And you can argue about whether or not things should have happened the way that they happened or anything else. I just found the abrogation of the process to me was the most offensive thing that I could possibly think of. And we might talk with Scott Ogan about that here in hour 2 as well when we come up to him here in just a minute. The second big thing that we're going to be expecting to talk about, of course, as we have talked about every year for the last 8 years, is the PFD. The statute has not been followed since 2016. Legislators have yet to agree on a long-term solution. Invariably, they're basically batting it around like a badminton shuttle. Is it a wiffle? It's a shuttle, right? The badminton, the little birdie is a shuttle. Anyway, they're whacking it back and forth across the net the entire session, year after year. It invariably makes it difficult for lawmakers to agree on these politically difficult topics. Last year, the Senate majority passed a 75-25 dividend formula bill, which they said is their answer to the budget crisis. When presented with all these other options, the fiscal policy working group model and all these other things, they said, well, our answer is a 75-25, meaning we're going to take 75% of the money and cut people's PFDs by whatever. That's our answer. The PFD is not going to be solved this year. It's an election year. They may talk about it. I guarantee you it's not going to be solved. Man, I didn't even get into some of the other stuff. I got long-winded today. I apologize. We'll have to continue to pick this up. Trust me, we got time before the session starts. Back with more. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio. My God, I almost killed myself. I inhaled a little spittle and anyway. Dunleavy has greatly offended me, says Terry. Yeah, I know. It's a tough thing. Apparently, Dunleavy's not too tired from getting on the national news outlets. That's why I've seen him nowhere else, said Gail. Yeah, I mean, he's good at riding. This has really got to be a lead up into some kind of race for the Senate. He's looking for a national stage. That's what I'm saying about. You've said PFD 5 times in the last 5 minutes, says Tyler. You know who's going to call. Yeah, I know. It's a thing. What was the thing you said? Supporting, was that a Freudian slip? Supporting Mike Shower? Maybe it was a Freudian slip. I meant Mike Dunleavy. my bad. If I said supporting Mike Shower in his run for his first term, I was talking about Mike Dunleavy. Maybe it was a Freudian slip. We are actually listening. Okay. I'm just going through the last comments here. I see Scott Ogan is in the green room. We're going to get to him here in a minute. Brian says, I could see the plane seats filling with taxpayer-funded lobbyists going to beg for more money. That's the typical situation, right? That's how it works. That's what's going on. All right. Good morning from the banks of Fair. Good morning, my friend. Thank you for coming on board. Okay. Donna said she read the article. First, states have huge balances, so they didn't spend or use all of it for tax breaks. Second, the states listed with budget problems are all blue states that are not tax cutters. They do mention Arizona having a $4 million projected deficit on an $18 billion budget. Not a big deal. Yeah, no, I mean, but again, what got me was that question, how they I didn't know that they were all blue states that were the problems that they're mentioning. But again, I love it how they say, what did they say here? They were basically saying, the tax cuts we can't say that they are the problem, but they're essentially, here we go. It's hard to say how much, if any, of the projected shortfalls are attributable to tax rebates or reductions. But in general, as tax collection slows, we're seeing a widespread. So they started out by saying it's hard to say how bad it is, and then they followed up with, "Oh, but it's bad." It's hard to say how bad it is, but it's bad. Just the writing on this stuff, it just drives me bananas. Absolutely bananas. It's 10 above in Fairbanks. What is it here? It's got to be pretty warm. Is it 30? Oh, it says it's 20. That can't be right. It says, well, that's 21 degrees. Okay, it is right. All right. I lied. It's right. Okay. Let's go over and check in with Scott and test his audio and make sure everything is all good to go. We'll bring him on board and see how things are going. We'll do it right now. Good morning, Scott. How are you doing this morning? Whoops. You're muted. Did I mute you? No, you've muted yourself.
Here we go.
There we go. How you doing? How you doing, my friend? How are things going?
Just great, man. I'm just finishing up breakfast here, so I'm just the second. So doing well.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, I just wanted to test the audio and make sure we're all good to go. I'll drag you back into the green room and we'll be ready to go here as soon as we restart the hour, okay?
Copy.
All right, you hold on. We'll be right back to you here in just a moment. He's just finishing breakfast. Now I'm jealous. I should have had breakfast this morning. That would probably have been a good idea. That would have give me. It's the most important meal of the day. Don't you know that? Good morning. Let's see. Why do we even bother about the PFD? We're beating a dead horse. Yeah, I know it just because we know it's going to go away, does that mean we stop fighting about it? I mean, really, does that even, I know that at this point, this is like a fighting retreat at this point. I mean, I just have a feeling it's going to go away, but does that mean that we stop fighting because we think that the battle is lost? I'm not gonna do it, Bill. I'm not gonna fight. You gotta fight to the end. I'm gonna do what we can do. That's all we can do right now. Maybe something. Scott's audio could be louder. I will turn Scott up when we get him back on the program. His audio could be a little louder. We will work on that. Okay. All right. Well, we're coming up on it. Hour 2 continues. Scott Ogan, our guest, will be diving into his article in Must Read, which I will post a link to in the chat room right now, so you can read along at home. Just do that. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the interwebs at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska. This is your favorite radio station and or FM translator. The websites where you can find links to everything. The audio-only live stream, the pod... Oh, man. It just reminded me that I didn't start the live stream this morning. I am a bad radio host. But you can still listen to it on the podcast. If you missed it, you can go back and watch it and stream it on YouTube or Facebook. Everything else, that's the best way to go. Hour 2, though, kicking things off, ready to jump into it. Our guest this hour is Scott Ogan, who is a former legislator and also now a formerly new policy advisor for senior policy advisor to State Senator Mike Shower. He was serving with Shower as his senior policy advisor from 2019 to 2023, but he's been around the block a day or two, and he has seen a lot of what's happened behind the scenes in the legislature, and he has written a recent article here that came out yesterday, day before, talking about the top 10 policy proposals, the left fork in the road policy proposals that are more progressive, liberal. What word are we using these days? Whatever it is, the left-leaning ideas, although, again, that kind of falls foul of what we were talking about yesterday. But bigger government ideals, I guess, is what we should say. Anyway, Scott's got some good analysis, and I started reading through this and said, why don't I just bring him on instead of talking, reading through the article and walking you through it? Let's bring Scott on to discuss it and get him to join us. And he's with us right now. So let's bring on Scott Ogan here this morning. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good for an old guy.
Not too bad for an old guy. Yeah, we're getting things squared away. So basically, we've been talking here for a while on the program, not so much coming into Christmas, but prior to that, we kind of know some of the things that are coming up, some of the big major issues that are going to be, the legislature is going to be kind of focused on. Now, I don't know if anything's going to get solved because it is an election year. But of course, we're going to see school funding. We're going to see issues with the PFD. We're going to see issues with defined benefits. Just the big things for sure. But you've got down into the weeds a bit here, and you're taking a look at some of the individual bills and what they mean. And so, walk us through this, Scott. And let's start off with with your article and walk us through some of these different, the top 10 from 10 to 1, these big bills and what we should be watching out for in each one and what your analysis is of each one.
You bet. Hey, I have a little bit of a technical problem. I couldn't get my printer to work this morning. I wasn't talking to my iPad. And so if you could start out with.
Sure, I'll walk you through it. So we started off with number 10 of your, countdown from 10 to 1 of the left fork policy proposals is HB 153, the oil and gas property tax bill from Representative Cliff Grow. It says this is you start off by basically putting the language of the statement. It says Alaska's reliance on savings accounts to fill budget deficits, it's no longer sustainable without risking the future of the permanent fund. We need new revenues, and changing the oil and property tax is one way to raise new revenues in a predictable fashion. What's your analysis and thoughts on this?
Well, my whole point is that, Alaska is a very mature oil province. And, if you look at who's left the slope, for example, we no longer have BP. I just checked yesterday with Division of Oil and Gas. Exxon is a player, but they don't have any staff in Alaska anymore. They're a part owner, and one of the major fields up there, the unit is slipping my mind, but they Port Thompson, I'm sorry, and but Hillcorp's the operator. So, and any mature oil province has the big guys move out and the smaller, more efficient guys move in. Unfortunately, we're lucky to have Hillcorp. They're a tremendously efficient operator. They're real good at work. So, I worked for an energy company. I got my hat handed to me politically for it with Evergreen Resources. It took a couple of years to develop the idea to go ahead and try to explore. It took about 20 minutes for the board to pull out. And then we got Hendricks down in Homer. He's the only Alaskan-owned producer, and he's operating in, I think it's called the Kitchen Unit in Cook Inlet. It's an onshore drilling site, and his whole thing is that he's appealed this tax revenue issue quite a couple of times and lost, where he bought it for way less than what the state valued it, and then he's getting taxed at that higher value, even though the market says it's worth less. And he's a local guy trying to make gas in Cook Inlet. Cook Inlet gas is a big deal. It was what we were looking at with Evergreen when we started drilling for coal bed methane wells, and we're back 15 years later. We had a little bit of a renaissance in Cook Inlet with some reductions and some credits, and there's some people like to kill the goose that's laying the golden egg, and Democrats are
doing it to it. We are again declining production, although they are saying we had some analysis with Brad earlier this week where he showed the numbers. Production is projected to increase, but in the long run, because of the changes to the oil taxation and everything else, the revenues are actually going to drop. We'll be producing more oil and taking less dollars in the long run. Do you think this bill is a good start, or what? I mean, or is it going completely in the wrong direction?
Oh, I absolutely think it's going in the wrong direction. You can't tax yourself into prosperity, and we need to be as far as Cook Inlet is concerned. Honestly, it's in the state's best interest to be able to turn on our lights and have heat in our homes and have that cost effectively. I mean, it's hard to believe that we might be actually looking at importing LNG into Alaska. That's kind of a interesting thought, considering Alaska had the first LNG export in the world. Our LNG plant was the first one, and it ran for decades. And now we don't have enough gas to. Who knows what's going to happen with the gas? We know there's a shortage. The governor's got a bill coming out. I talked to Oil and Gas a couple days ago, and it didn't make the first pre-file. I'm not sure what's in it. I suspect it might be a royalty reduction for Cook Inlet gas, and Bring it on.
Scott Ogan is our guest. We're talking about his top 10 left fork in the road policy proposals that he's analyzing. We move on to number 9. This is from Andrew Gray out of Anchorage. HB 184, short-term rental unit registry. Basically, it would amend Section 34.90.04, limitation on the number of short-term rental units. An operator may register or operate only one short-term rental unit at a time under this chapter, which comes back to a lot of the NIMBY stuff that we're seeing and the, people doing VRBOs and Airbnbs and things like that. They're trying to limit people's ability to capitalize on their property, in my opinion, but give me your analysis of this.
Well, I mean, one of the foundation tenets of a free market capitalist society is to be able to invest in properties that make you money, build your wealth. I had a vacation rental for a year. I just sold it a couple years ago. I timed it really nicely to coincide with the day the interest rates went up. So I hit the peak of the market. I reinvested it in my business in Soldovia, built a brand new boat and with part of it, and bought some more land with the rest of it. I mean, so now Andrew's coming along with an idea that you can only own one. The hotel lobby will like it, but it reeks of socialism. What can I say?
Well, I mean, and I think that's the thing. I mean, with the gig economy and the changes, the problem with government, or maybe the benefit with government, is that it is such a behemoth that it is not agile. It cannot change as technology changes. And we've seen this across the country with, again, the gig economy of, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Airbnb, and all these other things. And it's shifting the paradigm. It's taking the protectionism that government provides to many of these industries, and it's kind of turning it on its head. And these industries are throwing their hands up in a panic, like, well, but this is an essential piece of the free market economy. If you have a piece of property, you should have the right to be able to use it in a way that's profitable for you. To try and restrict people to one piece of property, I mean, that's not even just socialism. That seems like communistic at that point.
Yeah, Fidel Castro sat up in his grave and saluted. What can I say?
Yeah. So anyway, if you want to, this is a regulatory taking is what you said. This measure is at best an extreme regulatory taking. I think that's being way too kind to try and limit you to one short-term rental unit. And again, it's specifically only targeting, it's not long-term rentals. It's only targeting those people who would like rent out their place for an Airbnb or a VRBO. That seems to have become kind of a bad word these days, that they are blaming people for being bad actors for wanting to cash in on a free market idea.
Well, and the market will regulate itself. I mean, when I started, there wasn't as many rentals, VRBO type rentals out there, and the prices were better, and everybody jumped on the bandwagon, and it forced the prices down. So I think the market it's one of the reasons I got out of it. Plus, I just got tired of the hassle of having to always, I was at my business down in Soldovia, and I had to have a manager to track it and clean it and make sure that, and if there was a problem, I had to get things fixed. It's a lot of work.
Right.
So I think the free market should regulate it. If there's too many, people will get out of the business. So,
yeah. Number 8 on your list of top, or number 8, sorry, on your list of top 10, HB 46, child care providers. This is actually going to be a new thing. We touched on it a little bit in the last session, but child care as a governmental service. This is the next big battle for a lot of the big government progressives, and even some Republicans are in on this, where they are just we can't do it on our own. The free market can't make it. I mean, they've created this regulatory environment that makes it difficult to become a child care provider. And now they're like, we've created the crisis, so now government should pay for it in all aspects. HB 46 would empower our small business child care providers to negotiate with the state to improve wages, working conditions, and training. More regulations, of course, always have led to more efficient operations. Give me your thoughts on this bill from Zach Fields.
Well, it's more than negotiate with the state. He wants to unionize the child care workers, and that's just going to run the cost of child care up. It's already astronomical. It drives a lot of people to stay on public assistance. The people that can pay the extra amount for union child care workers will be suffering more under Bidenomics, and inflation's already eating holes in everybody's budget. I see it in my business. Our business is down. All the higher end lodges, Ketchimak Bay, are down. People aren't spending money, so it'll just have another ripple effect in the economy.
It's again, this shocked me when this first started coming out late last session, when they started talking about it and they started looking at the numbers and what they were proposing and what they want to do. He wants to unionize it, but now the fact that they want to subsidize all child care in the state and make it a state offered service at this point, basically making all of these child care providers subcontractors to the state or beholden to the state. Again, I would just say be ungovernable. Find that little old lady down the street and pay her a few bucks to watch your kids, rather than try and jump through all these hoops. We're going to continue here with the top 10. Scott Ogan is our guest. We are up against it here. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we will continue the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We will return with more and Scott Ogan in just a moment.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Scott Ogan is our guest here on the program as we go through. I don't want to get too far into anything else until we get back to the radio. Scott, you mentioned it, and so let me give us a plug for what you do. You've got a great place down in Soldovia, right? Down on the lower Kenai there. Tell us a little bit about what your business is down there. You've been running the lodge and everything else. Give us a sneak peek.
Yeah, we built a treehouse lodge in Soldovia Bay. It's about 2 miles south of Soldovia on the opposite side of the bay. It's a full service lodge. We have I just built a beautiful 28-foot landing craft to support it with twin 175 Zooks. That boat is coming on this year. Like I said, I sold my vacation rental and then reinvested that money into my business. And so my wife and I run it with a young man to help us. And we're small. We don't want more than 6 guests. We have shoulder season specials, so Alaskans can afford to come down and stay. And then our rates go up during the prime season, and we specialize in small private groups. We try not to get multiple groups in, so you have individualized attention. You get to go where you want to go. We fish halibut, salmon, rockfish, lingcod, bear view. It's living the dream. I'm doing what I love to do, and it's an awesome property. TreehouseCove.com if you want to check it out.
All right. Well, that's good. I mean, and that's the free market way to go where the money is. We want to bring, we want to cater to people who've got money. That's the whole point of business in the free market, right? So you create, you're finding a need and filling a need.
And we get some wonderful guests. I mean, we give them a true Alaskan experience. And my wife was born and raised here, and I've been here since 70. Done it all, so it's we have a good time.
I've never been to Soldovia. I'm going to have to make a trip down there here one of these days. Every time I get to Homer, I just like stop. I'm like, okay, end of the road. This is where I want to be. That's the way to be.
Well, I love Homer, but the best part about Homer Seldovia is a 45-minute boat ride right across the bay. And there's a day ferry that goes over twice a day, and Seldovia Bay Ferry. The village tribe owns it. It's a big catamaran fast boat, but I pick up my guests in the harbor, my full service guests, and then we make an adventure getting to the lodge by doing a tour of the South Shore of Ketchimek Bay. But again, treehousecove.com. Check it out.
That'll be fun. That'll be fun. I'll have to come down and see you here one of these days.
Come on down.
Yeah,
If you don't stay with us, I'll show you around.
Okay. I want to touch base since we've got how much time we got here? We got a minute and a half. I want to touch again here on the child care thing. I think that's going to be the next big push. I mean, they're going to want to fight for defined benefits. They're going to want to fight for school funding. But the next big fight on the horizon after they try and tackle those is going to be this child care because it's a universal issue. Many people have kids. Child care is expensive. Part of that expense is due to government regulation. But I mean, this is the next big money pit for big government folks, be they Republicans or Democrats. This is the next big one, right?
Well, I spent 10 years in both House and Senate, and I had Vic Coring. That was my we were both probably the more conservative people in the legislature, and even when we had really conservative, solid Republican majority, I asked Ledge Research to give me a list of all the new programs we created since we have oil wealth. And this woman went, really? Do you realize how much work that is? She worked on it for a year. The list was exhaustive. I walked into my conservative caucus and said, hey, here's a list. Let's get rid of some of these programs. And everybody looked at me like, we have constituents that want those programs. We can't eliminate any programs. And so the left just wants to add them. And,
the right's not willing to cut and the left just wants to add. That's a combination that's a match made in hell right there. All right, Scott.
I think I've seen one program go away, and that was a glitch. The Coastal Zone Management Program went away. In my 25 years I've been watching this.
All right, we got to get back into it here. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
All right, we're continuing with Scott Ogan, former legislator, state senator, representative, and also just recently retired as a senior policy advisor to State Senator Mike Shower. We're going through his top 10 list of the top 10 left fork in the road policy proposals, what he considers to be the bad ones here. We're on to number 7, which is HB 156 from Representative Elise Galvin, who is the independent from Anchorage. I love that. It's the income tax. Her comment is nobody wants to implement a tax on Alaskans, but we're out of time and out of options. Through a broad-based tax, Alaskans will now have a direct stake in the state government spending responsibly, which eerily echoes some of the things that Brad Keithley has talked about here, although he's talking about a flat tax. But the bottom line is, I think this is inevitable and is coming, but I'm not necessarily thrilled by her idea. What's your analysis of this bill?
Well, I think there was some adults in the room a couple of years ago that sat down, and it was a bipartisan group. Mike Shower was part of it. And Mike's a smart guy. He's got an MBA. He's not really that dogmatic. He just wants to solve problems. And Ben Carpenter, there was a few guys from the left that were on that panel, and they came up with some things that I don't like. But it was a comprehensive approach of look, we've got to have a constitutional spending cap. We've got to have let's put the permanent fund into the Constitution and set that amount. Let's quit fighting over it every year. Let's get it set in stone, because that doesn't drive the whole discussion. Some broad-based taxes, some You know, maybe some budget cuts. You know, the best I think you can hope to do is just put a limit on spending. But you know, Elise is a really nice lady. I like her personally. She's delightful. I've known her for quite a few years, but you know, I kind of called her out in the article about, you know, let's have some truth in advertising here. You're not really independent. But there are options, and I just recommended that she look at it. And uh, we act like you know, teenagers with a trust account, you know, as a state, and we have all this money we can spend, and you know, the liberals are like, well, look at all this money, and you know, why are we even holding back? Let's create all these new. Their idea, and I brought this up on one of the other segments of economic development, is a government job or expansion of government programs. That's development to liberals and Democrats.
Well, it's not just Democrats. I mean, you know, the famous quote from Natasha von Imhoff before, we've got so much money we don't know what to do with. She had the perfect plan to spend a lot of that stuff. That's the thing. It's almost like at this point, I don't even know if it's beneficial to label Republicans and Democrats. We should be looking through the lens at each individual as whether or not they are pro government spend, pro big government, or pro smaller free market, smaller government, less government spending. And that's the problem. As you pointed out earlier in the last segment, or late in the last segment rather, is that you had a bunch of Republicans that didn't want to cut programs. Right? They didn't want to. They go, oh, well, we can't cut programs. We've got constituents. Well, you want to solve this, and you mentioned again Ben Carpenter and Mike Shower and JKT, and you know, a lot of these people came together in that fiscal policy working group, a completely separate group of folks, some of the most conservative, some of the most liberal, and they came out with a unanimous decision in the end that it had to be a holistic approach. Nobody was happy with the overall thing, but that was kind of the way compromise works. It was a holistic plan with a bunch of different points that had to be taken on, and nobody's paid attention to that.
Yeah, and the really sad thing is, you know, leaders like Mike Shower are just marginalized, and he has no committee assignments. I mean, it's absurd. It's like the people with the real solutions and that have demonstrated they can work with people on both sides of the aisle and be the adults in the room. You know, he's completely cut out, and that's one of the reasons I resigned. I mean, I got tired of pushing rope uphill, and it was we couldn't get bills through, couldn't do anything, and it was taking me away from my business.
All right, let's move on to number 6. This is HB 43, conversion therapy ban, from Representative Andy Story out of Juneau. HB 43 would prohibit physicians, physicians' assistants, psychiatrists, psychologists, psychological associates, and other practitioners of the healing arts licensed by the state from treating a person under the age of 18, as well as vulnerable adults with a therapy or regimen that seeks to change their sexual orientation or gender identity. Nothing in the legislation affects any individual's expressive speech, tenets, or practices outside of that context, is what Andy Story says about her piece. Your analysis on HB 43.
Well, you know, on its face, some people might say, well, it's not a bad thing to not let people do that. But if you're a parent and you have a child that's gender confused, and man, the pressure, the peer pressure and the pressure from the schools is phenomenal. I mean, I'm 71 years old. Growing up, we knew a couple of gay kids, but there was a small handful, and nowadays it's like it's the in thing. It's like a cool thing. It's like when I was a kid, it was cool to be a hippie, and nowadays it's cool to be trans. You know, and then they're letting children make these very adult decisions. We don't let people vote till they're 18 and drive till they're 16, and they aren't a, you know, can't drink till you're 21, but they can make a life-changing decision that will affect them, and it's irreversible with some of the drugs they use and the surgeries and the genital mutilations. I mean, you name it. I think it's plain child abuse, and to take away a parent's ability to take their child to a mental health professional to you know, have them sort through their feelings is just more woke leftism, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, it's very difficult. I love the videos that I see sometimes on YouTube, people on the street, interviews on the street where they're asking people, if your 12-year-old child wanted to get a tattoo, would you let them? And they're like, absolutely not. Would you let them go out and buy alcohol? Absolutely not. Would you allow them to take puberty blockers? Well, that's okay. That's again, an irreversible, in some cases, life choice at a very, very young age. They can't get a tattoo, but they can mess up their bodies and block their hormones and everything else. That's a tough situation. And the fact that they can't even take them to somebody who could walk them through their problems is, again, to me, that's an invasion of privacy and a usurpation of parental rights.
Well, I made the point in the article we should level the playing field. If we're going to do it for those people, let's ban teachers advocating. How about higher education? How about let's ban the drag queen story hours in libraries. Of course, those are all First Amendment violations, and so is this. But I don't think it's going anywhere, especially with some good people that we have in the House, especially that are going to be the roadblock to these bad things happening. But it's just it's amazing how much traction this issue has gotten in the last few years. And I had a good friend of mine, very liberal thought, but we're good buddies. We talked a lot. We got together for lunch about once a month years ago and just chatted. And he was a smart guy, and we like to banter issues. He sent his daughter off to college, and she came back a man, and I could. As liberal as he was, I could tell it really bothered him. I mean, he wasn't going to have grandkids. So
right. No, that's it. That goes back to one of my favorite axioms was don't be surprised when you send your children to Rome and they come back as Romans.
Exactly.
It's not shocking in that regard. All right, let's move over to number 5 here before we come up on the break. SB 52, the base student allocation increase from Senator Loki Tobin of Anchorage. In recent years, flat funding and inflation have degraded Alaska's vital system of public education. Without additional funding, Alaska will see increasingly large class sizes and continued teacher and staff attrition. I will point out that teacher and staff attrition is not an Alaska problem. That's a nationwide problem. But the base student allocation increase that she advocates is, of course, that's one of the main tunes we've heard over the last 18 months, is that it's been flat funded. We just haven't increased education. We just haven't done anything. We're way behind the power curve. So your thoughts on this bill?
Well, we've got a very well-organized NEA that represents teachers. They got the tough job. I mean, it is a tough job. One of the things that Shower looked into, he has a guy on his staff, Naresh, that is very good with numbers, and they looked into the past increases and where they went, and so little of the money actually went into the classroom and went into the teachers' salaries. Most of it was gobbled up with, administrative overhead and hey, our education system in Alaska is one of the lowest in the country. We have horrible numbers and outcomes. So, I think if there was an increase, a reasonable increase with some metrics that required performance, better performance, or went into specific programs that we knew was going to get into the classroom and help teachers and provide more materials, and there was going to be a better outcome with the students, I think most people would support it. But there's never any of those metrics on the table. And Shower went into the committee and testified on that. I told him, I said, just go in and testify as like a public member, since they don't let you sit on any committees. That's your voice. And he did. And he brought up these numbers, and the teachers in the room started supporting what he was saying.
Right. Well, it's the whole thing is ironic. First of all, the fact that we have been spending exponentially ever increasing amounts of money on education outside of the formula. So they act like there's been no increases. It's a disingenuous argument to begin with. But there used to be a caveat that said when they put money in the BSA that a certain portion of it was required to be spent in the actual classroom. And that's been jettisoned and revoked because, as you said, most of this is going to overhead and staff and teacher, and it's not making it into the actual classroom. That would be the only way I think most people would actually support something like that, is if the money was actually making it into the classroom or into a specific program, as you talked about.
Well, the principals that would come into our office last year, I would ask the tough question. I go, "What's your policy on sexually explicit materials in your library?" Oh, well, well, we listen to parents, and I was kind of the hard line. I was the bad cop. I was like, well, I don't think the senator is going to support any new funding until we get all that taken care of, So, there's this whole, let's stop sexualizing children. There's enough of it on the internet, for crying out loud, and everywhere you turn. I mean, you open Facebook, there's racy stuff on there. Instagram, soft porn. I mean, and the kids are on that all the time, and I don't know. I have grandkid. I have a grandkid, and I fear for young people these days. It's just tough.
Well, and surprisingly, Donna mentions that Shower put up a budget amendment to require that any additional BSA funding go to the classroom, and that only got 3 votes. I thought this was about the children. I thought this was about teaching the children. It only got 3 votes. That right there is insane. All right, we're going to continue with Scott Ogan here in just a moment. We're going over his article in Must Read Alaska, the top 10 left fork in the road policy proposals. We will continue here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. The final 4 up next with Scott Ogan right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Scott Ogan, our guest here as we continue on. That's what always, first, what offends me mostly about this, Scott, is as I said, the disingenuousness of the argument. The talking points, and the newspapers have done a great job of just picking this up and running with it, is that, education has been flat funded. We haven't increased education. We're abrogating our constitutional responsibility. And yet when you look at the numbers, and we have Sarah Montalbano on from the Alaska Policy Forum, who's their educational analyst, and she shows you that over the last 20 years, education has increased 20%. 20 something, 27% or something over the last 20 years, the educational spend. No, has it all gone into the BSA? No, but the BSA is not going into the classroom. So does that, what difference, to quote a famous, what difference does it make? We are spending more on education. We're just not baking it into the cake, so to speak.
Well, and that's true, and if you ultimately, you look at some of these other countries and the level of education that they're giving their kids, China, Japan, in particular, America's falling behind. The sciences, the math, the engineering, all these critical things that we need. It's and then they go to the higher education level and just get woke and brainwashed and get a degree that they have a huge student debt for, and then they want everybody to pay for their student debt. The University of Alaska has to have remedial classes. Basically, you go to college, you have a lot of students. A significant portion of those students have to take remedial basic math and English and things like that just to get up to 101 college level. So we're not preparing kids that do go to college for college. And guess what? The college knows how to teach it because they've got to get it done to have students be successful at 101 classes. So that says a lot.
When I discovered that issue, that was about 15, 16 years ago. I had a guest on a program who was an anonymous guest because he didn't want to out himself, but he worked in the education system at the university. And he told me the number at that time was 62% of the students had to take remedial math courses just to be able to get into a 100th level math class in college. 62% had to take remedial courses. That is insane. When your education system, your K through 12 education system is failing so hard that you got to give them extra education just to get into a basic math class in college, that's a serious, serious issue.
That it is, and that says it all. So let's see those performance numbers and metrics go up, and if we're going to put some new money into it, make sure it prepares kids for college. And why not prepare them for life? Why not have life courses, balanced checkbooks, and file taxes and things like that. They don't have. I don't think they have home economics anymore. They used to, and they used to have automobile shop.
Yeah.
And
I know.
but they're
Teach them how to cook some food, teach them how to balance a checkbook, teach them how to do a few of these things that are, kind of life skills. I mean, those were some of my favorite times in school was when I was taking some of those courses because that was skills that I felt like I could use these moving forward.
When I was in the legislature, I used to go to Palmer Chamber all the time, and the Matsu hired a gal that was her focus was to prepare students to work in the workplace. And they came into the chamber and said, what do you guys need? Tell us as employers, what do you need? And to a person, everybody said, I need people that can do simple math, that can make change, that can write a paragraph, that can speak well, just simple, basic skills. And now Matsu, I think it's one of the better school districts in the state, and they still have a conservative board, and they've got some great technical programs. I mean, I made most of my living building. I was in the building trades, and before I got elected, and then I kind of got a lay law education in the legislature. But it's my son works on the slope, or he did for couple of decades, and boy, he makes fabulous money up there. But
the trades are where it's at as far as this. I mean, as far as the ratio of debt to education, debt to income, the trades are still where it's at, and the demand is huge right now for many of these trades. That's what
it help.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
I've encouraged all my kids to go that route because that's what makes sense. Scott Ogan's our guest. We got our last four bills that we're going to talk about real quick here. We got about 10 minutes before we run out of the hour. You can find the link to his article in the chat room right here. We'll be back with more of the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell. Here we go.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on.
All right, we're back. Scott Ogan, our guest, the Michael Duke Show. I appreciate you being on. Thanks, Scott, for coming on and taking the time to go through this. I look forward to reading some of your future stuff. He's doing a lot more writing for Must Read Alaska. The article is the top 10 left fork in the road policy proposals. We're down to the last four. Let's get on to number 4, SB 88, a restoration of the defined benefits program from Senator Kathy Giesel. She says that SB 88 addresses Alaska's workforce challenges with recruitment and retention head on through establishing a new defined benefit retirement plan for police officers, firefighters, teachers, and other public employees. Recruitment and retention are essential, yada, yada, yada. But there's some poison pills in this. One is the fact that what she doesn't tell you is that this just doesn't work with new employees. This would be retroactive to basically 27, 28, 30,000 employees across the state would all of a sudden be dumped into a defined benefits program that they have not been paying into since 2007 or whatever it is, since we made the change. 2014, I guess, whenever we made the change. Give me your thoughts on this bill, Scott.
Well, what's interesting and what I pointed out in the article was I was in the building when Senator Stedman eliminated the defined benefits program. Liability, and we still haven't funded the liability. A few years ago, I think there was several $1 billion that were put on into covering that unfunded liability. So we've got a multi-billion-dollar outlay that the state's going to have to make to keep up with its obligation. And by the way, it's a constitutional obligation. So I'm, I have a lot of mistrust. I don't necessarily believe the numbers, or I don't think it's a good policy to.
Well, we haven't even really gotten any good numbers out of it. The fiscal notes have been kind of all over the place. There's no real analysis of what this is eventually going to cost. But as you pointed out, we still have the current unfunded liability for the past defined benefits program is somewhere in the $7 or $8 billion range. We still owe that money to that defined benefits program. And now you want to start up a new one that includes everybody that has been with us since the last one was capped off. I mean, billions of dollars is the numbers.
I pay off my credit card bill every month, right? And the state has that charge on their bill that they keep making the minimum payment on. And I think it's if the responsible thing to do would be to make that original program whole and see how that goes before you create a new additional unfunded liability. So that's what, the state operated its checkbook like the rest of us have to. Of course, there's some people that have a trust account and they don't have to worry about it. They know at some point they can tap that trust account. I guess that's the mentality.
It's definitely frustrating. Donna says the defined benefits bill has a fiscal note of $1.2 billion. I think that's just a start, quite honestly, when it comes down to it. Like you said, better to pay off the previous unfunded liability before we add to it. Let's move on to the third of the top 10, HB 90 from Rep. Zach Fields, capping the dividend at $1,000. That's it. Just caps it at $1,000.
Yep.
You
don't need money. Yeah. Well, that's Zach Fields is. He's probably the prime example of the most left person, and then him and Andrew Gray, I think maybe, but definitely Zach, and he's he's in the back pocket of the union. So I think it just displays what the public employee union's agenda is. They want to tap that permanent fund, and so yeah, just cap it at 1,000. But let's put the issue on the table and let's figure out what that amount's going to be. Shower was always like, look, the statute formula is this, and if we need to have the policy discussion of changing that because the economics of the state have changed, and they have, we're not. I was looking at the old Zobel case, reading that, and they were talking about how the state budget is like 85% funded by oil. That's not the case anymore, folks. So the rainy day is here. We are funding a significant portion of the state budget with earnings of the permanent fund. So Shower was always look, let's have the policy discussion and let's vote on it, and let's everybody can be accountable to that. But instead, every year they wrap themselves around the axle every single year over how much the permanent fund is going to be. Yep. And I welcome the discussion. I think 1,000 is stealing the people's money.
Yeah, no, it's still basically this is the poster child for we know better than you how to spend your money. That's essentially what this boils down to. And yes, if you want to have the policy discussion, do so. But $1,000, the current, the last statutory formula number I saw was over 4,200. If you'd done it by statute, this is just painful. All right. Number 2, HB 185, also from Zach Fields. Oh, he loves going after that permanent fund. The permanent fund dividend tax. HB 185 establishes a permanent fund dividend income tax, basically by how much you make. Under the bill structure, individuals earning $75,000 or families earning $150,000 or more would pay annual income taxes equivalent to each year's PFD, while lower earners and children would continue to receive their PFD. So essentially, you pay it back. You get hit with it, then you pay it back. Your analysis.
I got to respect Zach for having the gonads to, even put that out. But again, it's like we're gonna cap it and tax it, and it's a means test, and it ignores the basic principle, the Wally Hickel doctrine of the owner state, and I got my political hat handed to me over coal bed methane because people don't own the subsurface estate in Alaska. So you buy your property, you don't get the mineral state unless you have pre-statehood conveyed property. And my Seldovia property is like that. So, but there are not many properties out there like that. And the native corporations have the subsurface estate, but everybody else, it's commonly owned. And that share of that oil wealth is your permanent fund dividend is a dividend from your share of that commonly owned oil wealth. So, and
Right.
there's also the equal protection issues with Zobel. Zobel was a little bit different. It was about how long you've lived here, but it was still an equal protection case.
Right. It's, again, I think kind of a dangerous road to tread. Let's move on to the final one, the number one issue, SB 61 from Bill Wielechowski. Basically, it would eliminate the Electoral College for the presidential vote, which I think that's been the golden calf for many of these people for a long time. It is a very, very, very dangerous idea to try and eliminate basically the Electoral College. Your thoughts on this here as we wrap things up over the last 2 minutes?
Well, the constitutional founders understood the dangers of having the population centers elect the president, and that's why they set up the Electoral College. So the smaller states, the rural states, and little states like Alaska have a voice in a presidential election. So this is basically a capitulation to every blue state, and I think I mentioned the policy that the blue states and the Democratic National Party support, with their open borders and the fentanyl deaths and all the trappings that come with I think I talked about the felony smash and run shopping. People just, these liberal states. Look what goes on in California and Oregon and Washington and the big cities and stuff like that. And those are the people that'll decide who the president of the United States is in perpetuity if Alaska and other states join this.
Yeah, no, then it becomes, again, it's mob rule at that point because the largest population centers would control basically everything in the country instead of having proportional representation, which people, they're not teaching this anymore. People don't understand the reason behind the Electoral College. They think it's antiquated. They don't understand, or they have a vested interest in seeing it go away because they want to see those major population centers have control of the whole thing. Scott Ogan has been our guest, again, former legislator and recently retired as a senior policy advisor for State Senator Mike Shower. Scott, thank you for coming on board. I'd love to do this again here sometime in the near future. Have you back on. Hold the line for just a second.
Okay.
We're going to be talk to you here in just a second. Folks, we're out of time. Tomorrow is Firearms Friday. Can't wait to talk about that. We will see you then. Enjoy yourself today. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show. Okay, Scott, we were up against the hard break there, but I want to give you final bite at the apple, final thoughts as people start watching what's happening with the legislative session. This go around, give me, you got a couple minutes here. You have the floor for final thoughts for today.
Well, thanks. I want to put in a plug for Must Read. My friend John Faulkner bought it, and Suzanne Downing is still involved. She's starting to fade out a little bit with the management role, and I think you're going to see some positive changes with Must Read. I know John wants to make it. There's already more mainstream articles on there, and everything John touches turns to gold. So I think I know he wants to build the readership and make it a kind of a main source for people for their news, and possibly even eclipse the Anchorage Daily News, which I used to sell the Anchorage Daily News a lot of papers. I'd be happy to extract a little revenge on that.
All right. Well, Scott, it's good to talk with you again. Maybe we'll have a visit sometime during the session, since you don't have to be down in Juneau. Maybe you can give us some analysis during the session of things you're seeing down there.
Yeah, well, John and I are talking about where we go from here. This was kind of a trial month and see how it goes, and I think he's pretty happy. And I enjoy doing it, and I have new respect for journalists. It's a tough thing, because people are going to snipe at what you write, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to try to do your best to get it right. And we welcome comments. If I get something wrong, I'll own it. But it's an opportunity to make a difference.
All right, Scott Ogan, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. It's good to talk with you. We will see you in the future.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
All right, folks, we are out of time. We got to go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll see you tomorrow.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.